Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode to Ahead of the Lane. I have a guest with me. His name is Josh. He's someone I actually wanted to have on for such a long time, and I'm glad we actually got to do that. So, tell us about yourself, Josh.
Uh, well, I mean, I have my Twitter account, Lord Tango, Holston Spurs, whichever, probably most people probably call me Lord Tango, but then it's, the people that actually have known me on Twitter longer will just call me Polson, like Amro does. But yeah, basically, I mean, I just talk about football and basketball on my account. It's like 95% football, and then I throw in the occasional little basketball thing when I feel like it.
Hmm.
But yeah, I mean, the idea of it has always been to just be a Spurs FC account, really. That's pretty much all it is.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah,
Yeah, you and I always have a conversation with each other about like the club and sometimes basketball. You and I just like stay up late at night and we just talk about basketball because that's when like they play, because like America and everything. And
yeah,
I honestly
exactly.
think you're
It's
like
like 3 in the morning.
exactly, yeah. And you're also like one of my favorite accounts because you're one of the more rational people, because most of like our fan base at the moment is very, very divided. If you haven't noticed, I mean you did, but
It
like
is.
anyone
We
that's
have the
not,
most divided fan base, definitely.
yeah. And it's never been like this. It's just very recent that everyone's just divided on everything, whether it's the manager, the players, the board. Everyone's just divided, and you've been a part of the crossfire, sometimes. So
Yeah,
no need
yeah.
to go into details. Yeah, yeah.
No, it's just typical, isn't it? It's because we got Jose. It always divides fan bases when you get Jose. It always happens.
Uh-huh. I see you're starting to point fingers already. In the episode, in the beginning of the episode. Okay, I see you. Okay.
I'm just saying, it happened with Man United fans. So
All right. I mean, honestly, yeah, like if you think about it, Man United was never divided when you talk about their fan base. It's only when Mourinho started having issues, it's where everyone either sided with the players or with the manager, the LUHG slash top Reds, yeah, top United Reds. Yeah.
I like the LUHG people. I find them funny.
I hate them. I can't stand them. I can't stand them. Mourinho would like fart on the sidelines or take a dump on the sidelines. They'd be like, "That's the best dump I've ever seen. That's a winning type of dump. That's the best fart you'll ever see. No other manager, farts the same way he does. I don't like it. I don't see the point.
No, that's true. That's very true.
Yeah. I mean, Mike is funny though. Like, you know.
Oh, Mike's the one that I pay attention to the most
Yeah,
because
I
all
used
the
to-
every Man United fan hates him so much, but I find him hilarious.
I honestly believe that he says most of the things that he says and doesn't believe in them. I don't think he believes
Oh
in the
no,
things he says.
no, no,
I think he
at
just
all.
like throws in like a bone and the dogs start biting. It's amazing. I aspire to be as good as Mike,
As
when
good
it
of a
comes to like
troll as that.
trolling. Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
That's
One
the
day,
goal.
hopefully. One day. Okay, so this episode is a redemption episode. I messed up the last time. I spoke too much truth. I said too many things I shouldn't have said with Harry Kane, and everyone hated that. And I got like the older set of Spurs fans to come attack me. Those late 30s, early 40-year-olds who have two kids, and instead of feeding them, they come and attack me. I got that part of the fan base to attack me, and it's very, very interesting.
Got
Um,
more of those than any other fan base, I tend to find. The Spurs seems to have so many of those fans that are like 40-odd-year-old dads with like 3 kids that are massive fans of Dyer, Winks, and Kane specifically, and then no one else.
oh man, oh man, you know how much hate I got for saying Davinson Sanchez is actually a decent center back?
Yeah, like an obvious statement. Like he has the only traits that would actually last in our team for what we need in defence.
Exactly,
But
and exactly, and they actually act like he's finished. He's just 24 years old. I've never
literally
seen
our youngest centre back option by like a distance until we get Foyth back.
exactly.
And
Isn't Tanganga younger, or is he fullback? I
yeah,
don't
but
get
but
him.
he gets played right back. I don't know what Tanganga is. I never like players that can't choose a position or never get put in the same one consistently. Because how good are you really going to be if we don't even know what position you are? You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
have to wonder.
True, to be honest. Well, yeah, you know, regardless of what they think, this show goes on. The show always goes on. Okay. So, my topic today is something much lighter. It's easier to digest. It's about, the rebuild. You know, Pochettino said that we are due to a painful rebuild. And he said painful. Out of all the words he could have chosen, he said painful. Why do you think he said painful?
I think it's probably because we did actually need so many pieces. And the problem is the pieces that we needed were gonna be deceptive because we came in and basically I have to give credit to. I mean, I don't know if I give credit to Jose because I don't know how many signings are responsible by him and how many of them are by our board because we've always had a clash between the two when it comes to signings. Um, but they basically signed in order everything that we wanted. The first thing that we wanted was a right back. We said, "Oh look, Aurier is not good enough. Oh, AC Milan are interested in Aurier. Take him, get him away from us." We said that at the end of last season, and that's the first thing we went and got. We went and got Doherty straight away. Dreadful mistake, but at least it made Aurier better. Um,
Mhm.
and then the next thing we wanted was a holding midfielder. We knew we needed that because we had the Ndombele Lo Celso thing going on. So we were like, hey, we need someone defensive behind them. And then the next thing we said was, well, left back, Ben Davies isn't good enough. We got Reggie. And then all the fans wanted Bale back because nostalgia. So we all went and pressured them until they got Bale in. And then they did that. They basically did everything we asked them to do, everything that we basically pressured them to do on social media, and probably not the right things. Because I agree that those positions were probably needed, but I don't think we anticipated how drastically we would need an Ericsson replacement, for example. We just thought that Lo Celso and Ndombele was going to be enough of an attacking force in midfield because those two are just going to be world beaters, and we all we'd need is a defensive guy behind them to balance the midfield. But as it turns out, we are pretty much useless without some kind of creator behind our forwards because Kane and Son provide for each other when they're both on the field, but they get the ball very rarely. They do very little when they're on it. They need someone that actually threads the ball to our top three. And sadly, it's more of a top two because our list of right wing options is frankly a bunch of incredibly average players.
Except Lamella.
It's either average players or role players. But hey,
Except Lamella. Don't diss Lamella, bro.
except Lamella. Except I like to think Lamella can be a good attacking mid though, rather than a right wing. Plus, I think he's like a role player. I don't think he's a starter. In my ideal world, I want Lamella to play for Spurs, but I don't want him to play 90 minutes. I want him to come on
Okay.
as that substitute in the 60th, 70th minute when you're leading by one goal and just shithouse your way to winning by one goal. Because Lamella's the king of that, basically.
I agree
But
with
I'd
you.
like us to actually have another scoring option that isn't Son or Kane, especially considering those two don't actually contribute anything that isn't a finishing touch.
Okay. So you said that Son and Kane create for each other,
Yeah.
and no one creates for them.
No.
Now, whose fault is it? Is it the player's fault or is it the manager's fault? Because we have to clear this out from the beginning before we go deeper into our topic for today. Because
It's tough to say because in a way, Kane and Son, barring the sort of 16-17 prime Dele Alli point in time, it was always the case since Ericsson was gone that Kane and Son are the only two that provide for each other. It's not so much the player's fault. It's I think ultimately you have to put it on Jose because he creates the system. And what we've ended up with is no Ericsson replacement and thus no one that creates for Kane and Son that isn't Kane or Son because we don't have Dele Alli, who had incredible link-up play with Kane and Son. We don't have Ericsson, who was just incredible at threading the ball to anyone from anywhere. And so now what we're left with is these two sort of tailing off of each other. Son can't do anything unless Kane is on the pitch with him. If Kane isn't playing, Son might as well not be on the field because he's not going to actually contribute anything. He'll get given the ball on the left throw-in line and he'll just end up doing a short backwards pass to someone because he doesn't feel like taking anyone up. Um, and then with Kane, it's like we love the fact that he has the high assist numbers, but all of them are to Son. Every single one of Kane's assists is a pass to Son. And I'm not taking away from it because his passing ability is good, but those two only provide for each other. Any assist stats the two of them get, it's just for each other. It's between the two of them.
Fair enough. Fair enough. You actually went very deep and you provided very good examples. There's only one thing I want to just add. You said that Son is useless without Kane, but to be quite honest with you, as much as again, I don't rate Kane that highly. Neither do I rate Son any higher. But Son versus Everton, he was slotted as a striker and he had like 3 assists that match. So I'll be honest with you, as much as Son is
Hmm.
useless without Kane on the wing, but because he has this tendency to cut inside and play through the middle, he's actually very useful as striker without Kane. And here's the ironic fact: we don't we play really well without Kane, but without Son, it's kind of difficult to play well without Son because you don't have any other finisher but Kane. And the fact that Kane he's forced to. I mean, there's no other option. Has to sit deep and provide for the wingers, and our wingers aren't prolific. That's why I
Yeah,
always think like we can play without Kane, but we can never play well without Son. But
yeah.
yeah, very, very, very good answer. And let me ask you this question now. In hindsight, okay? Like I know at some point, maybe not everyone, but the most wanted Pochettino sacked. I guess it's either after the Champions League final. In my case, it's the Champions League final, or the 7-1 game versus Bayern, or it's the 3-0 game against Brighton. So
That was the one for me.
yeah, I think everyone at that point were like, okay, Pochettino is done. He lost the locker room. He has to go. And then
Yeah.
Mourinho came. So I know that everyone wanted Pochettino sacked, but in hindsight, was getting Pochettino sacked the right option to this day? What do you think?
Um, I have to say it's a tough one because the thing is, when you bring in Jose, you basically get all of the signings that you want, which is a benefit because it's very rare as Spurs fans that we get to see the right signings made. Because it's not Pochettino's fault, but when you have Pochettino in, there seems to be a real hesitance to actually make any good signings. It's all a bunch of 15 mil, 10 mil players that you hope are going to develop into something that aren't really proper proven players in any way. Whereas when you get Jose, I mean, I suppose it's contradicted by the fact that Poch managed to get Ndombele and Lo Celso, who are both, I believe, there are two highest transfer cost players of all time. Um,
Hmm.
but but it seems that beyond those two, and maybe that was the start of something, it was very hard for Poch to ever get in players that he wanted. Whereas the reputation of Jose and his legacy drags our board into pretty much providing him with the signings that he wants. The issue with Jose is that he doesn't necessarily pick the right players in each individual signing. So it's a tough one. I'd have to say it probably is the right thing because hindsight is always going to make you think that it was the wrong thing to do just because we're in a bad slump. Um, but I don't know if Pochettino has us in a better situation than what we're in right now necessarily because I don't know if he actually makes anywhere near the amount of relevant, helpful signings that we have managed to get. Because Hoiberg and then Ndombele's development, and obviously Reguilon when he's in the squad, without that, I don't know where we would be in the table. We'd be battling relegation without those three, I would imagine.
Okay. Let's catch everything you said point by point. You said that hindsight's always correct and that, you think that we shouldn't have done something because we're in a bad situation right now. But Pochettino should have been sacked regardless. Even to this day, you still believe in it. Is that correct?
I think there's not really any world where Poch doesn't get sacked in that situation. And it's like it's all well and good for us to say, well, he shouldn't have been sacked at that moment in time. But we all know that it was always going to happen regardless. Like we can play the hindsight game of like, well, we could have been in this situation if we kept Poch, but no manager ever goes on that sort of spell of bad results and recent disappointment and doesn't end up getting sacked. Even though I rate Pochettino and I think his style of play would be much nicer to watch than Jose's, I don't know if he even makes the signings that keep us afloat now. So I have to wonder how much Pochettino could do with a poor squad, frankly.
So you think we had a poor squad, and regardless, Pochettino should have been sacked. And I want to talk about this point, the squad point. You also said that without the signings that Jose had. I mean, even though Jose, we don't know if it's a Jose signing or a Levy signing, but regardless, Jose has enough pull
Yeah.
to attract some good players like Reguilon, Hoiberg,
Yes.
and the like. You said without them, we could have faced relegation. Can you
It's
elaborate more
possible.
on that?
Well, if we were
Because
to line up for this season, if we were
Mhm.
to line up who our best players have been this season, who our most impactful, most useful players are, the list pretty much does start with Ndombele, Kane, and then really you're looking at Hoiberg and Reguilon. And I think that those two, especially Hoiberg, if we didn't have Hoiberg, I don't know if we get anything close to the nice win streak that we had for the first 10, 12 games of this season until we hit that horrible slump where we, through the game against Crystal Palace, through the game against Liverpool, you know, that kind of business. I don't think we even get close to those games being realistic. If Pochettino has to go into this season without Hoiberg, without Reguilon, using just the poor players that we had the previous season, like Winks and Davies, I have to say. There's only so much you can do with players like that.
I mean, I'm not gonna disagree with you on that. I'll honestly tell you that Hoiberg was a very important addition to our team, and the fact that we just got him for like 3 million plus Walker Peters is
Basically 3 million because we didn't
back
use
pocket money.
Carl
Yeah,
Walker Peters.
yeah,
Yeah,
and you know, I mean, Kyle Walker Peters is actually really good with Southampton. I won't lie to you, but
it's true.
for three
It's
million
true.
plus KWP, amazing deal. And
Oh yeah,
Region is a very good deal. He's like one of the best left backs, one of the best left backs in the world, in my honest
I
opinion. Like
agree. Yeah,
top five
he is.
easily, top 10 easily.
He is.
And we got him how much? Like 20 something, I guess.
I think it was. I think the amount comes to 26. It's somewhere
Exactly.
in that region. It's nowhere near as much as he's worth. I can say that much.
Precisely. And he just came after winning the Europa League. So brilliant signing. And I honestly think Josie has credit when it comes to his influence in the market.
Yeah, I have to say I don't know how it goes with Jose because I know he gets to basically say what position he needs or what role of player he needs, and then I don't know how the next step goes. I don't know whether Jose sends a list of players he likes to Levy and the board, and then they sort of dictate which one they want to go after and which one they can get the best deal on, or whether it's straight up just Jose gets the ability to go in and pick the player, and then the negotiations get done by a board. I don't know which order it goes in, so I don't know whether the specific player pick can be credited to Jose, but I'd imagine he at least draws like a short list of players he would like.
I mean, we don't know that for sure. We can't say for sure because
No,
our board is one of the most quiet boards. Our club is one of the most secretive clubs. So we really don't know what's going on. Even with the whole
no,
Region, Lo Celso, Lamela situation with COVID and the party during New Year's,
yeah,
we really didn't know if they had COVID or if they didn't. They're very quiet. But let's get back to topic. Like you said, with the players we have had, if we didn't sign them, would have been in relegation. But here's the follow-up question: how come with the players that we already have, without Region, without Hoiberg, we went to the Champions League final? How does that make sense?
Well, I have to say, if we're being realistic, there's a lot of fluke to that Champions League run. To say we deserve to reach the final is probably not exactly. It's not exactly true, is it? We could have and probably should have been eliminated by Man City in the quarterfinal. Never mind making our way to semi-final and scoring 3 goals in one half with one of our worst players. I don't know if we can. I don't know how much the credit goes to us for reaching a Champions League final. It's one of the best but luckiest runs I've probably ever seen in the Champions League, to be quite honest.
I mean, as Jose fans always claim, it doesn't matter how we play, it doesn't matter the style. As long as the
Uh,
scoreline is us winning, we do deserve
yeah.
to win. 3 points is 3 points, winning is winning. So, as much
That's
as like
true.
you tell me that, oh, we're lucky, I don't care. I'm a Jose fan, okay, everyone? I'm a Jose fan. And I believe that if we
Amaron
won, we
notoriously
deserve
loves Jose.
to win. Yeah, I'm the biggest Jose fan. When it comes to the rebuild, I'm kidding. Nah, I can't even lie. But yeah, okay. You make a good point. You make a good argument. To be quite honest, like maybe I don't like giving Jose as much credit, but the one thing I will say with absolute honesty, with no trolling, no fooling around, is that he has pull. He has good pull.
That is true.
So yeah, back to what we said. In hindsight, we both agree that Pochettino should have been sold. We don't know what would have happened if he stayed. It could have been worse. Like people want to say that, yeah, maybe keeping Pochettino was correct because every manager goes through a bad spell, every team goes through a bad spell, and we have to work our way through it. But I agree with you that he should have been sacked either ways because, okay, we keep him. And I'm one of the people that said we should have kept him. But okay, we keep him. Are we sure that we could have gotten the players that we got under Mourinho? Like, are we sure about that? Are we sure that our board would have signed, would have gone into this emergency mode and signed players? Like, do you agree? Tell me what you think.
I agree with you there. The problem is my ideal world would be Jose's pool can get us our transfers, but Pochettino can manage our club. That would be my ideal situation. If we could have Mourinho's pull in transfers and let Pochettino work with the players that Mourinho drags to us, that would be ideal. Sadly, we have to pick between the two. Because the issue is you
Exactly.
give Pochettino this squad, he does better than Mourinho's doing with it. But you know, Mourinho has brought in the signings and he's spending his way into keeping his job, I guess.
Well, is he gonna keep his job? Here's the question now. Before like I ask you the big one now, the whole essence of our episode. Let me ask you this last introductory question. Do you think he's gonna keep his job, Mourinho?
Um, well, the rumours I've heard is that he's got 4 games, and his results in the next 4 games will determine whether they choose to keep him on or not. I don't know how true that is. I know that clubs do often set those little benchmarks for managers. I think it's unrealistic. I think chances are the rest of this season will play out, and then depending on how this season finishes, whether we've won anything, what our position in the league is, if we're still in a poor situation and we don't even win a Europa or a Carabao, he probably will be gone. But I don't see it happening before the end of the season because I think it's quite natural for, especially when you get a manager like Mourinho, who is more established than any manager our club's really ever had before. Um, I think our board and our club would be a little bit hesitant to get rid of him too quickly. Even though I don't think it would be too quickly, they probably would look at it that way. I don't think he should keep his job. I think he probably will.
Yeah, I think he will too. I think it's very unrealistic to sack him. Like whether the next 4 games go easy or the next 4 games
Mm.
go bad, I think it's still unrealistic. I think getting a manager mid-season, well, it's not mid-season. It's like the season. It's like we're in like what the third quarter of the season. But
Yeah,
getting a manager in the middle of a season is not a good thing, and we've seen it with Mourinho before.
it's not a
Like
good
when he
idea. No.
exactly when he came, he couldn't get the results because it's not his players, it's not his preseason. He didn't get much options, and the winter transfer window was when COVID started. So it was well, no, not when COVID started, but the winter transfer window is a window we don't usually spend much on. We go big in the summer. So
That's true.
you're correct. I like as much as I disagree with Mourinho, and I think he should not keep his job, but I think maybe like wait till the summer because also in like if you think about it, the other managers that are managing other clubs are not gonna leave their teams mid-season for us or any other club in that case. They're gonna
No,
wait out. Like
that's the
not
problem.
exactly like Nagelsmann. Nagelsmann is someone we're linked with. He's second in the league and he's playing in the Pokal Cup, the German Cup, and he might win it, and he's second in the league with like how many points? Like maybe like 2-3 points behind
I think he's
Bayern.
two. I think he's 2 points behind Bayern. Yeah,
Exactly, 2 points. I'm not. I'm not feeling that Nagelsmann is gonna leave in the middle of the season to manage us when Mourinho gets sacked. So,
no.
so you're correct. Now here's the big question. Now, okay, Pochettino said that we needed a painful rebuild. If you were in Pochettino's situation, what would be that rebuild? How would you rebuild, Spurs? Just give me all the
Well,
details, lay it out.
at that point in time, our order that we looked at things was we need a right back. In my eyes, we didn't need a replacement for Aurier. We just need someone that gets competition for him. Because Aurier right now, I'm more than satisfied with the Aurier we have right now playing as our right back. Our left side, however, we only had Davies as an option and Rose, obviously, but I could see the Rose decline. And obviously, we found out he's not exactly particularly passionate about playing football at all, never mind for us. Um, so I think a left back was definitely needed and a right back probably wasn't. Although some sort of youth right back that could take Aurier's place and at the same time make him feel like he has competition would have been an ideal move. I don't know what the list of young right backs out there is. I know Max Aarons is one, but I worry that if we brought in Max Aarons, he would just take Aurier's spot. There would be no Aurier competition. He would just play ahead of Aurier. And maybe that's for the best because then you get the best out of both players. But on the left side, any kind of left back would be good. Obviously, if we could get Reguilon for the amount that we got him for, that's the ideal one. If we can get Reguilon for 20 odd million under Pochettino, I would love to have done that. That would have been amazing.
Would he have come to Spurs
Then
though?
I don't think he comes without Mourinho, but he did
Or
come
Bale?
with yeah. Bale is the interesting factor. I don't know
Yeah.
if Reguilon comes if Bale isn't coming here. But if not, I'm sure there's plenty of left back options that can sort of fill the void that Reguilon has. Because I'm not asking for someone that's Reguilon quality, because that is like top 3 or 4 left backs in the world potentially. I'm thinking, just anyone that's young-ish, is somewhere vaguely in the sort of top 20 of left backs in the world, but has some development that's potential there. I think sort of left back is less important, but it's still crucial enough to have to replace Ben Davies because, frankly, Ben Davies is tragic. So, you know,
No question with
anything
that.
that isn't Ben Davies. But the thing we needed most was an Ericsson replacement, probably. Now that we look at it in hindsight, Ericsson replacement is the most necessary thing. Luckily, there's a lot of attacking mids. I would have been fine with anything from Coutinho when that was apparently possible. Uh, you know, any of the younger options as well. If we could have got Eze instead of Crystal Palace getting him for about £5, that would have been great. Um, I would have liked for us to get Eze instead because I feel like he slots into this squad perfectly because he actually takes players on and then can distribute the ball well enough. And also has some goals in him as well, which is something we need because we only have 2 viable scorers. No one else in our squad is really worth more than 4 goals a season.
What about
But
what about
yeah,
one of the players that a lot of our fans want, Sabitzer? What do you think of him?
big fan of Sabitzer. I think it works. The only issue would be this rebuild is pre-Højbjerg. So we don't have Højbjerg in this rebuild, but presumably we could still drag Højbjerg over here because he didn't want to play for Southampton anymore, and they stripped him of his captaincy before the season ended.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's probably possible that we could still get Højbjerg, and then if we can deploy a Højbjerg and Ndombele Sabitzer midfield, I think that's pretty much unbeatable realistically. So I would have been fine with Sabitzer because he's young enough as well to the point where he's someone you can keep as your attacking midfield option for half a decade or so.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So you believe that our wingbacks need a haul, they need a reshuffle. You think Aurier alone couldn't do it because we saw Trippier to Atletico Madrid. Davies is
Yeah.
not first team type. Ericsson should have been replaced when he left to Inter.
Yeah.
What about the right wing spot? Do you think?
Right wing spot is probably in my eyes for our current squad the second most important thing that we need after an Ericsson replacement.
Go on.
Because the thing that I have the biggest problem with our squad is as much as our defense gets blamed and as much as our defense is often responsible for our losses, we don't exactly have much in attack. We don't progress the ball up the field very well at all. And part of the reason our defenders make so many errors is because we don't progress the ball up the pitch, and the other team gets to spend 80 of the 90 minutes in our third, pumping crosses and through balls over the top through us. And unless you have Beckenbauer and Maldini, I'm not really sure which centre back partnership is going to be able to stop 50 crosses a game which is pretty much what we end up facing when we play the way Jose played. Um, but my main problem is that we don't have a third scoring option. We have Kane and Son. They're both worth sort of 15, 20 plus goals a season. In Son's case, you can expect sort of around 15 goals from him, maybe slightly less. With Kane, you can expect a sort of 20, 25 goals from him a season. But then when you go beyond Kane and Son, who in the squad is worth more than 5 goals a season? Who can you expect more than 5 goals a season from? You would expect it from Delhi if we were able to play him and if he actually played and if our manager didn't have some sort of hatred for him. But otherwise, I'd be looking at a right wing option and saying, hey, if we could just have a good attacking 3 rather than a good attacking 2 and then some guy that just plays in right wing, that would be ideal. And lucky we can do this very easily because we have 4 right wing players and 3 of them can be easily removed and should be removed. I don't really see any need for us to keep Lucas, Bergwijn, or Bale at all.
I was
I
waiting.
think that
I
all of
thought you were gonna
those.
say Lamella. I was just like waiting. I was like,
I'm not going to
don't
say
say
Lamella.
Lamella. Don't say Lamella.
Lamella's a role player. We're fine with Lamella existing because, like I say, he should be on the bench at the start of games anyway.
Yeah.
But I'd be perfectly happy with selling all 3 of Lucas, Bergwijn, and Bale. Obviously, Bale wouldn't be sold because we don't own him. But I'd be fine with selling Lucas and Bergwijn and just getting in one competent right winger that works. Thauvin would be ideal, or Talvin, I don't know. Either way, same player. Thauvin would be an ideal option. But you know, there's the list is endless of right wingers that could fill that spot. It just needs to be someone that can get you more than 5 goals a season. That's all. That's all I ask.
Anyone who can cross and score, basically.
Yes, and anyone that will touch the ball more than 3 times a game. Yeah.
Okay. Now you noticed that Pochettino and Mourinho, in the most fundamental ways, are different, and one of those ways that they're different is when it comes to formations. Obviously, with Pochettino, we had desk, a front 4, and with Mourinho, it's like a 4-3-3 with a front 3, but it's basically two attackers and a right winger who just is there for defensive duties.
Yeah.
But yeah, basically front 4 with Pochettino, front 3 with Mourinho. In your, in your envision of what our painful rebuild should have been, I see a front 4. Is that correct?
Yes.
Front 4.
If you look at football champions, the teams that win the Champions League, the teams that make it deep into the Champions League, the teams that everyone regards as the best in the world, virtually all of them play a 4-3-3 with an attacking midfield. Basically every single one. The Man City teams that destroyed the Premier League back consecutive times and broke point scoring records, they were playing a 4-3-3 attack. Bayern last season were playing a 4-3-3 attack. Prime Barcelona were playing a 4-3-3 attack, essentially. Although, I suppose not when we were talking Iniesta Xavi days, because you'd have a holding midfielder behind the 2 of them.
Basically create
4-3
who could score.
Dominant formation in football, as far as I'm concerned. And I think the main difference between Jose and Poch is that Jose notoriously thinks it's a cool thing to have non-symmetrical squads, where the left and right side don't look the same and don't operate in the same way. Whereas with Pochettino, he likes his attacking unit to all progress together and everyone sort of comes in, and the closer you get to scoring, the more everyone sort of pushes in, and then you get this sort of nice linking attacking 4 going on. That would be my ideal system too. I like Poch's system much more than I like Mourinho's.
I mean, only Jose stands would like Mourinho's system. Any other football fan?
It's horrific.
Because I haven't been to the stadium, obviously, I live like a continent away. But from
right now, I don't know what you're talking about.
Oh yeah! Oh, I mean, look, I work at the stadium. I'm the one who cleans the seats. I mean, I live there. Look at me. But no, but seriously, I forgot what was. Yeah, okay. Goddamn. Okay, so you say that Pochettino's system is much more entertaining than Mourinho's system, and you say that any team that is basically championship material is 4-3-3 with an attacking midfielder. And then I said, I don't think anyone disagrees with you. I think anyone who likes football would like Pochettino's system. Mourinho's system is not entertaining, and only Jose fans will ever disagree with that statement. They think it's like some trendy personality trait to like ugly football. Um,
Yeah, but
okay,
it wins. That's what football's about. It's all about winning.
it's all about
So
winning, like Leeds, getting promoted after 20 something years, not interesting. It's just promotion. It's not winning.
just
Where's the
promotion.
trophy?
No.
You know, like Nagelsmann took Hoffenheim from relegation zone to Champions League spot in the same season. No,
Yep.
not a winner. Sorry. I like my serial winners with trophies and bad football. Okay, because I'm cool. but but yeah, man. We went over transfers. Okay, do you think transfers are the only aspect of a painful rebuild? You know,
um, not
or do you have
necessarily.
anything else to add to the painful rebuild that Pochettino talked about?
Well, it's a tough one because perhaps another part of the painful rebuild is that Poch might have foreseen the decline of Hugo Lloris. That is a possible alternative as well.
Go on.
Because I think what Pochettino saw was Lloris was one of the most important players to him when he first came into his job. This was a sort of, it's a Lloris that when he came in was error prone for sure, but was also the only goalkeeper that was going to make these leaping, diving athletic saves into the top corner. Um, and granted, for Lloris, for the last 3 years, he has won us a lot of points. He is responsible for a lot of the points that we've earned because we've sometimes faced teams that absolutely dominate us, and he makes some ridiculous saves and keeps us in the game. But maybe what Poch saw was, especially considering when Poch left, Lloris would have been what, late 32 going into 33. Um, I think what Poch might have seen is, yeah, one of the players you see as the most crucial to our club. Some people view him as the second most important at that point in time. Is probably going to have to go and be replaced. I think that's potentially a part of it. Is that he saw that we would need to get rid of players that people view as crucial, like Lloris, like possibly Alderweireld. You know, I think that he probably saw that.
You said Lloris, you said Toby need to be replaced.
I hate to say it because I love Toby. He's genuinely one of my favorite players at the club, probably one of my favorite players in football. But I don't know. Father Time does seem to be catching up with him a little bit.
I mean, age is catching up with both of them. You know,
Yeah,
uh,
Lloris is 34, so you know.
exactly. You said Lloris and Toby, which kind of are like one of the players in the hierarchy of captaincy,
Yeah,
right? So
yeah,
if you notice this, there's a huge gap when it comes to the leader role. And you think if Loris gets sold, who's our captain, we need a new captain, and Toby means another leader from our, squad is gone. So who do you think could replace Loris as a goalkeeper and as a captain? Well, you could tell me two different players, or you could tell
yes.
me that you could bring a leader who's also like a goalkeeper. It's up to you. How do you fill that
Well,
gap?
luckily, I think even though he's only been here for a short amount of time, there's absolutely no reason why Højbjerg doesn't have exactly the personality we would want for a captain. Holding midfielders are typically the best captains in football anyway. Holding midfielders and centre backs. So I see absolutely no reason why we wouldn't give Højbjerg that captaincy role like he had at Southampton. Um, and I mean, even if we were saying that he needs to earn that by being at the club for a little bit longer, I don't see any problem with Kane being an interim captain for the time that Højbjerg needs to earn his little captaincy step. As far as replacing Lloris, there's a bunch of options you can go for. If you can afford Donnarumma, if Donnarumma is willing to leave AC Milan, make that happen. I suspect that it's unlikely and that he'll probably just re-sign his contract because I can't really picture Donnarumma anywhere that isn't AC Milan. Especially considering he's got an older brother that's at the club and he is Italian and it's the only club he's played for in his senior career. Um, as far as other options, Hope would be great because I don't actually think you'd have to spend an arm and a leg to get him, and he's young enough to the point where he can actually be your goalkeeper for a long time. Obviously, people like the French guy Maignan as well. I think he's good. I'd be fine with him coming in as an option as well. I think both of those are solid options, but all three of those are players that if you can get them, get them. Start with Donnarumma at the top of your list. If that isn't possible, Hope and Maignan are both perfectly fine replacements for Lloris in my eyes.
Brilliant. You honestly said the things I actually wanted to say, and you said better than I could ever. And wow. So to recap everything you've said that if you were Pochettino in that given moment, transfer, you would just, replace everyone you've lost, Ericsson with Eze or Eze. I don't even know how you say
Yeah,
his name.
I think it's Eze. I don't know though.
Eze,
All
yeah,
I know
Eze.
is Crystal
And
Palace. That's all I know.
mm, you'd replace Ericsson with Eze. You'd get a right winger who's competent like Thovan. You'd get a right back and a left back, and you'd get someone in the midfield. Obviously, Lloris has to go. That's the painful part, and Toby has to go too. So, all in all, is that how you picture it? You think with Pochettino? Here's a question. Let me rephrase this actually. With all these transfers and all the painful departures, do you, as Pochettino, think that the painful rebuild involves you, or does it involve someone else?
Yeah. I mean, it's difficult because I don't think he pictured it meaning him. I don't think that's how he envisioned the state. I don't think that's how he intended the statement. I think the way he looked at it was there are players that you as Spurs fans view as the most important players at our club. You're probably going to see a couple of them go because before this season started, the general consensus was Kane, Son, Lloris, Alderweireld. These are the most important players to our club.
The untouchables,
Um,
basically.
yeah, the untouchables, those four, and I think Pochettino probably foresaw two of those are going to have to go. Um, and so that's the more painful part of it. I don't know whether he envisioned having to change formation or style at all. I think that's unlikely because the rest of the squad, especially if you make a couple of reasonable signings, is pretty functional, especially with a Pochettino style. Um, but I mean, you would need replacement centre backs as well. I'm not really sure who it is, especially considering I would get rid of Dyer as quickly as possible as well.
Obviously.
Um, I don't really know who the centre back options really would be. I know there's plenty of them available. I just don't know how realistic it is that we'd be able to get them because I think a lot of clubs are after the same players we're after.
Yeah. Yeah, I think especially when it comes to the left center back position. No, I mean if you think about it, Vertonghen left, at the end of last season. So would you have
Yeah,
kept Vertonghen, or would you just have replaced him just like Toby?
I would have kept Vertonghen for as long as the Vertonghen Alderweireld combo or the Vertonghen Sanchez combo can work.
Mm.
I think Vertonghen Sanchez would have actually survived very well, and if we had that combo right now, I think we'd actually be doing a lot better.
Mm.
Not just because Vertonghen is left-sided, but also just because I think Vertonghen is probably I think Vertonghen ages better than Alderweireld. I think he does a much better job than Dyer, although that's not particularly difficult. And then you're left with just those two as the options, really. I think Vertonghen Sanchez works paper and it works in principle.
I agree. I agree. As much as people want to slander Sanchez, but I think he's a better partner to Vertonghen than Alderweireld. I know they played together in the national team. I know they're
Yeah.
friends. I know they played together in Ajax. I know all the history, but I honestly think the
Mm.
more functional part is, or the more functional partnership is Vertonghen and Sanchez.
Yeah.
But I honestly feel like Vertonghen should have gone. You know, I honestly think Vertonghen, you know, his days are over. I mean, he would have like if he stayed, he would have done better than Alderweireld. But if I was manager or if I was, uh, the chairman, I would have sold him and Alderweireld. They're both aging, and they've been together for such a long time, and they've won nothing. So I think time is up. Get young blood, and I think you would agree with me on that, wouldn't you?
I would agree. My point with Vertonghen is not that he shouldn't have gone. It's just that he's better than what we end up with right now.
True, 100%.
Um, but if it was possible, selling Vertonghen and replacing him with a left-sided centre back that can be a permanent replacement would obviously be the ideal option. Especially if we can get rid of both Vertonghen and Toby, who they were an effective combo when both of them were a reasonable age, because both of them were great centre backs. And the best thing about them was was they balanced very well. One of them's the stoic positional centre back, which is Toby. The other one's the sort of, you know, last ditch tackle, great aerial ability, sort of also good
The
technically
commander.
on the ball
Hmm.
in Vertonghen.
Mm.
Um, but because both of them got old at the same time, because they're a similar age, both of them end up becoming pretty much ineffective at the same time. And I think time called for both of them to be gone from the squad.
You notice that Daniel Levy and Pochettino had a disagreement in the end of their tenure together. And if you notice, like watching the Amazon documentary, it was very troublesome. After the Champions League final, it was very cold, very troublesome relationship between them. It's very awkward. You didn't feel like they gelled well together. So I told you, like, if you're Pochettino, what would you do? And you told me the signings and the transfers you would have done. But do you think Daniel Levy, our chairman, thought the same way? Would have agreed with Pochettino, or do you think he would have done something differently? And if so, what would have he done? If you were in his place.
Well, I think the thing is, if Levy would have been willing to keep Pochettino on, then he's at least willing to allow a certain amount of input from him when it comes to transfers. The problem with our board and chairman in general is that they do like to have some sort of dominance over the transfer situation. We know that they tend to be the ones that handle the negotiations and not the managers. We know that I don't know how it goes as far as which players get picked, but I would imagine what would happen is, even though you might not end up with the world class players that Pochettino wants to sign, if Pochettino wanted to sign a young player that isn't expensive right now, but will have great potential in the future, I think Levy gets out the checkbook and says, "Well, how much is it? If it's
Mm,
if I don't have to pay more than sort of 20 million for an attacking midfield replacement, I'm perfectly fine with spending that money." I think
okay.
there's just a limit because Levy's pretty much dominated by the money, as most clubs' chairmen and owners are. So I think it comes down to, there's a limit on how much Pochettino would be able to ask for when it comes to a player's price. But if it's a good signing and Pochettino can convince Levy and our chair that it's a good signing, I think it probably gets done anyway.
I actually agree, and I think the history of the way Levy behaved in the transfer window does back up the statement. He is the type of manager that's fine with 10 million, 20 million, 15 million, maybe 30, 35 million signings, but nothing more. Anything more, that's when he gets stingy with the money, he holds on to it a bit more.
Yeah,
He'd rather spend on cheap young talents than buy one quality signing. Unless that
yeah,
quality signing is like a gap we need to fill, I don't think he's gonna spend that much. I agree 100% with you. Very reasonable, points, especially with the transfers, especially when it comes to giving Hoiberg the captaincy, maybe Kane as well, due to the age and the respect he has with his teammates. But
yeah.
but my vision of what a painful rebuild is much more radical than that. I'll be quite honest with you. It's much more radical. It's much more transforming. Not that what you said is wrong. I actually agree. On a very fundamental basis, I'd say everything you just said. Ericsson is bound to leave. It was obvious last season. There was no interest whatsoever. But I want to say something to the people that think he's finished. Please
Hmm.
watch Italian football. Please watch Italian football. He's not finished. If
Yes.
you watched Inter Milan versus AC Milan, just the last game they played, Ericsson was a big game player. It was a big influence in that team. He's not finished. He
Yeah.
just is sick of not winning anything with us. And he has every
Hmm.
right to. And everyone mocked him for saying that he has a bigger chance at Inter to win trophies than us. I mean, he's not wrong. Last season they were like second in the league and they were in the Europa League final. And this season they look like they're gonna win the league with
Yeah.
you know, Inter looks like they're the league winners and he's not wrong. Time proved that he's correct. So he leaves. Obviously, he's gonna leave, whether it's Pochettino or Jose. His head is set. He wants to leave. I would have replaced him with, Eze. I would also say maybe Buendia from Norwich. Buendia is another name I actually
I
am.
agree. I agree. Wendy is great.
Buendia is amazing. He can assist, he can score, he can play right wing, he can play attacking midfielder. He's good on both foot, good at set pieces. He's very young too. I think 24, 23. And I mean, he would not be cheap. He wouldn't be like 10 million, but 25, 30
No.
million, perfect for Buendia. Maybe even 40,
Yeah.
you know, a
There's a
perfect.
how much he can be worth because he's playing for a championship team. And when you play for
Exactly,
a championship team, there's only so much that the club can ask of you because they need money as a club.
basically.
So players that are good in leagues below are the easiest to pick up for decent amounts of money.
And we've noticed that the championship is a minefield of gems. We've noticed with Eze, we've noticed with Ben Rahma, we've noticed with Buendia, also Watkins, Konsa. There,
Yep.
the championship is actually a very good league to poach players from, and it's less risky than foreign leagues because they know how the English style is. So I would poach from the championship sides, Buendia, Eze, just as you said. I would have gotten a left back because I do not rate Davies whatsoever. I would have gotten a right back instead of Aurier. I think also like in the beginning of last season or the beginning of this season, I said I would mind Max Aarons if he was a replacement or a secondary right back. I would be okay with selling Aurier or keeping him. I don't mind. But if we sold Aurier, I'd go with Atal from Nice or
I agree.
Celik is like this Turkish right back. I would have
Yes.
gotten him
Yeah.
as well. I wouldn't have gotten Doherty whatsoever. I would have maybe gotten Castagni from Atalanta, who now plays for Leicester, than Doherty.
When
Doherty's like 29 years old. Castagni is a
I agree.
player, you know?
Castagna is incredible. I remember him being at the top of my list when all the rumors came about of what our right back option would be. The rumors came about around at the sort of same time. It was Spurs are interested in Atal. Spurs are interested in Castagne. Spurs are interested in. I don't know if we were ever interested in Chelik at one point. We were interested in Max Aarons as well.
Max Aarons, yeah.
And we had interest in all of those players at the same time. And I remembered spending ages and ages looking up what each of them are good at and what the numbers are on each individual one. And Castagne blows the other two out of the water completely. I don't know how. I mean, obviously, football you can mostly see it with your eyes. You shouldn't really rely on. You shouldn't really rely on WhoScored.com to determine which players are better than others. But there are some things you can find out that you know that
I mean,
open your eyes a little bit.
yes, stats do matter, but also performance. I'm not, you should,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, I would have rated Atal higher than Castagni, but nonetheless, those are my top two on the list. Yes, like I was saying,
Yes.
right back, I would have changed both center backs. Toby, Dyer, and Vertonghen would have gone in my books. In my books, all these three would have been sold at the same
Yeah.
time. Would have gotten a left-footed center back, a right-footed center back, kept Foyth and Sanchez because they're the future. I don't know about Rodon. Wouldn't have gotten him at that point, but if even if I got him, I wouldn't mind him.
No,
But
he's fine for a substitute.
basically, yeah. If anything, I would have preferred Rodon slash Tanganga or Rodon slash Sanchez for now with Jose, but you know, in my vision, Rodon wouldn't even be in the books. We've gotten two starting center backs. I would have kept Foyth and Sanchez. When it comes to like the starting center backs, I would say Botman or Pau
Yes.
from Villarreal. But one of those
Pau
two,
Torres would be fantastic.
Pau Torres would be amazing. And the cheaper option, obviously, Botman, considering that Lille has financial issues going on. I think they're bankrupt now. And I would have gotten a top right center back who's more of a commander role like Demiral. Imagine if you got someone like Demiral.
If you could get Demiral and Celik at the same time, you'd have a sort of Turkish connection on the right side of the defense, and then perhaps that works out incredibly well.
And exactly, and then you get Botman and Celik, and that's a Lille connection as well. You could have gotten Reguilon. I wanted Angelino, to be honest, from Leipzig, but then he signed
Yes.
a contract extension in the summer. But then when we
Yeah.
got Reguilon, I was very happy because he was a player of the same profile as Angelino. So I wasn't too fussed. Reguilon would have been there, holding midfielder. I would have probably gotten Ndidi myself. I'm more of a fan of the anchorman type defensive midfielder,
Yes.
not the
I agree.
Hoiberg, Rodri type. I'm more of a Ndidi type. Those players who play very deep. So Reguilon or the right back could attack. I would have sold Kane and Son. I'll be honest with you. I'm saying it right now, and I'm saying it again. This is the second episode in a row. I would sell Kane and I would sell Son. They're both. Son is 28. Kane's gonna be 28 in a few months, maybe 1 2 months. They're both 28-year-olds. I'm not saying they're bad. They're top level. They're top four Premier League level. They're championship material. I just don't see that they're world class. And the reason why they're not world class is not because of them. Here's a correction for all these haters. It's not because of them that they're not world class. It's because they play for Spurs and Spurs couldn't win a trophy that they're not world class. I'm not shitting on my club. I'm not shitting on my players. I'm just saying the facts. If Drogba played for, let's say, West Ham his whole career, it's not that Drogba is crap. It's that Drogba couldn't hit that world class ceiling that Gareth Bale did, by the way, who's a Spurs player, if in case the kids who started supporting us during Jose doesn't know. He wouldn't, yeah, like he wouldn't be like, world class like Gareth Bale, but Drogba would have been a top level striker. But because he played for Chelsea and Chelsea won trophies, he won them the Champions League, that he's world class. You cannot be classed as world class if your numbers your numbers don't give a result. I don't care how many goals Kane scores. Kane could be the highest goal scorer in the history of football. Kane could break Cristiano's and Messi's and Pele's numbers, but there's no point of being, a striker who scores a lot of goals if there's no result. Does that mean you should leave Spurs? Maybe. But that also means you're not doing enough. You're not clutch enough to score in the right moments. You might be scoring against weaker teams like Brighton and West Brom and all those teams. But where were you in the semifinals? Where were you in the finals? You weren't there for England against Croatia. How can you like? Okay, I know we
It's
love
true.
Kane. I know we love Kane, especially with the English Spurs fans. They have a connection with someone from the same place they're born. Is even like in the same city, the same neighborhood, and all that. But like, he wasn't even there against Croatia. What's the point? So I would have honestly sold Kane and Son. Son is useless without goals and assists. If he doesn't assist, if he doesn't score, he's useless.
Yeah.
They're both going to be 28 or they're 28. So, the age factor has to be taken into consideration. They're not going to be top level for too long with us. There's no future with them. We're a club. There has to be continuity. And since they're performing well, that means their value in the market is very, very high. Son 100 million easily, Kane over 100 million easily. But let's say worst case scenario, both are sold at 100 million. We have 200 million extra in our transfer funds just by selling Kane and Son. And then there's Lloris, we sell 20 million, 50 million, you know, 10 million, 15, 20 million, for a 33, 34-year-old goalkeeper. And then there's Alderweireld and Vertonghen, could have sold them, and then we sell the Deadwood, Winks, Dyer, Lucas, and all those people. Jansen, right? He was there last season.
Yes.
Sell
Yeah.
all of them. Probably
You're
even
looking at
like
100 million at that point by the time you get rid of everything you don't need.
exactly. Maybe even like if you really want to push, maybe Lo Celso, maybe Lamela. Let's just like if you really want to push it and have a rebuild, but I wouldn't go to the point of actually selling Lo Celso, even though I don't rate, and I wouldn't sell Lamela because there's very few utility players like Lamela. So we sell,
Yes.
and Dele Alli. I would sell Dele Alli. I love Dele Alli. He's a personal favorite of mine, but I would have sold him not because I think he's finished, but I mean it's been years, and he can't put that number. I'd rather he has a new challenge. It's a win-win situation. Anyway, it's a win-win situation with
I
Son,
agree.
Kane, and Dele. In my opinion, we get a lot of money from clubs that really want him, and at the same time, they get a new challenge. They're as motivated as they used to be when they were younger, you know. But the chapter has to be closed. If I was Levy, I would stick to the decision I've made, which is sack Pochettino. And this when it comes to basketball. You and I are basketball fans. Dynasty teams. Every dynasty has a cycle. When you draft them in and when you draft them out, and the manager
Yes.
goes as well, and you need a fresh new page. So that era, that dynasty with Pochettino, those 5 amazing years that we honestly took for granted, is done. It's done the moment we lost the Champions League final and the players were not motivated. It was done when Dembele was sold. It was done when Toby Alderweireld and Jan Vertonghen were too old to play at the top level. It was done when Lloris
Yep.
was back to being error prone. It was done when Son and Kane became too redundant and became too, you could say, blunt. They're not as sharp as they used to be. It was done when Dele lost his motivation. It was done when Ericsson asked to leave. It was done when
When
Pochettino was
Kyle
actually
Walker was
sacked
sold.
and
Yeah.
Kyle Walker was sold. Exactly. It was done then. It was done when Wanyama was not the same Wanyama when he came back from injury. It was done. So, I mean, that dynasty is over. And to truly move on, to truly start fresh and brand new, is to actually, and like I said, painful rebuild, right? Get rid of them. Get rid of Pochettino, get rid of Son, Kane, Dele, Lloris, Vertonghen, Rose, everyone. Start fresh,
Yeah.
start brand new. Look at Hoiberg, look at Reguilon, look at Vinicius. Bergwijn in the beginning when he came to Spurs, look at how hungry they were. I'm not saying they're top level, but the hunger makes up for it, especially during the big moments. And we have to get new players. We have to start a new dynasty. We have to start a new manager. I'm not gonna get Jose Mourinho if I was Levy. Even though Levy is in love with Mourinho, I would not get Mourinho. And this is because Mourinho is not someone you rebuild with. Mourinho is a manager you bring in to have that extra
When you have a
push.
world-class squad already and you
Exactly.
just need to get off past the little hurdle. Yeah.
Exactly, exactly. He's there for a little push. We were knocking at the door for a trophy. Now Mourinho was supposed to push that door, or knock that door down and take the trophy. And he didn't. That's why I think he should be sacked because he didn't. And he's worse than all of our managers, statistically when it comes to winning percentages. So sack him. Get another manager similar to Pochettino in his philosophy, which is rebuild long term. Someone like Sir Alex Ferguson, the same, dynasty type manager, and keep injecting money to fill in the gaps every few years for the aging players. That's what I would have done.
I agree.
That Pochettino 5-year era with those players are all going to be sold. I don't care if us selling them all at the same time would create chemistry problems, but that's no problem for me because a rebuild is long term. Even if we sucked one season, we'll improve every single season after that. That basketball team Oklahoma. We had the best drafts. We had Russell Westbrook, we had Harden,
Paul
we had
Harden and Paul
CP3,
George and
Paul George.
CP3 at one point in time.
Exactly.
Yep.
And we didn't win anything. Oklahoma did not win anything. So now they're starting
No,
brand new, they're starting fresh, and they have amazing draft picks. They have a great young talent, a pool of young talents, and they're rebuilding, and they're actually really good. So I think Spurs should have done the same. We have a great pool of young talents. Let's play with them and let them have chemistry and start having fresh new page, a new dynasty, and removing all the old players, even though they're the best, even though I know they would have saved us from relegation, but they have to go at some point. I mean, we have to take advantage of them. Are we gonna wait until Kane and Son have 1 year left in their contract and they tell us sell us now at a cheap price to a rival, or we're gonna go free to a rival, or we're gonna sell them at their best when they have high value and lots of years in their contract? Like, don't you see, like, even though my like opinion is very very radical, very very transformational, but it does have to happen at some point. It's called painful. What do you think?
I agree. I completely agree. The best thing is, if we'd have made the decision to sort of completely reset the squad after the Champions League final, that would be the ideal point in time because you get all of the players you have get additional market value off of the back of the fact that they just made it to the final of the greatest competition in club football. And then you also get to completely reset your squad that you know is going to be unmotivated because they just made it to the latest stage you can make it to and the best stage you can make it to in football and
Mm,
lost in it. The players, if you lose a Champions League final when you're a squad that doesn't even know that you can make a Champions League final, you're going to all feel unmotivated when you don't win it. The moment they didn't win it, there was no hunger in the players to go and win something for Tottenham Hotspur anymore. Maybe that hunger existed in Harry Kane, perhaps. Well, I think that Kane is a little bit of an exception from the rest of the players because the rest of the players I feel don't really have any sort of affinity to Tottenham Hotspur. Even someone like Toby Alderweireld, I think he loves the club. I think he likes what we've managed to get done here. I think he likes the fact that we've got him to the status of looking like one of the best centre backs in the league at one point in his career. Um, but I don't think that he looks at Tottenham Hotspur as like, oh, that's the club I must absolutely define my career by and win everything with. I think Kane is probably the exception because Kane does seem to me to actually be a proper Spurs fan as well as being a player for Spurs.
Mhm.
As much as, as much as I think there's some issues with Kane, like the fact that he touches the ball about 3 times every game, I'm I'm perfectly fine with Kane's desire. I wouldn't have banked that when Kane lost the Champions League final, that Kane doesn't care about winning anything with us anymore. Whereas with the rest of the squad, I feel like there's at least a piece of that going on in their heads.
You gave me a very you made a very good point that actually made me reconsider the Kane sale. Like I wouldn't be as adamant in his sale, which is the point where
He cares about the club a little bit more than the rest of the players do, I would say.
he's an academy product. He lived in North London his whole life,
Yeah.
and he got developed in that club, and he's English. So there's that, that thing playing out on. So maybe I wouldn't have sold Kane, to be quite honest. Now that I'm thinking, maybe I wouldn't have sold Kane if we couldn't get like
It
a
is a
top
tough
level
one.
striker like Jovic, Daka,
Yeah.
Calvert Lewin, and people are like, "Oh, Calvert Lewin, he's not the same level as Kane. I would have gotten Haaland instead. Haaland is not coming to us.
No.
Haaland is
No.
not.
If he could, that would be incredible, but it's not
He's not
happening.
coming. He's not. Like when you have Madrid and Barcelona and Juventus, PSG
No.
that want you, you're not gonna come to us, especially if you're like the next big thing. You're not gonna come to us. We don't have that pull right now. But people are like, oh, Calvert Lewin, he's off his head. He's not thinking straight. I honestly like when it comes to a Kane replacement. Most people want someone the same quality as Kane. I don't. I'm fine with a solid striker who can head the ball and score, and maybe pay much more when it comes to our wingers and get two world class wingers and a solid striker like Liverpool with Firmino, Salah, and Mane. I would have been fine with that.
Yes.
You know, but the Kane point is actually very good. I actually like that point. Maybe I would be more adamant in selling Son and Toby and the rest, but not Kane. But very good point so
I
far.
agree. I
Very good points.
personally think I'd be perfectly fine with Son being gone. I have to say that. I have no issue with Son being gone because I think Kane is still a very functional player without Son. Son is a completely dysfunctional player without Kane. So
Mm,
I think that Son is replaceable as well. There's players you can put on Son's left wing spot, especially for the money that you can get for Son, that are perhaps an improvement on Son.
Neto.
Because recent form Son hasn't looked particularly great. Neto would be great. I
Mhm.
would love to see Neto. But the wing options are in abundance, especially left wing options, because most people are right footed, so
Mhm.
most players are right footed. And then that gives you an endless list of options for cut inside, right footed left wingers.
Mhm.
You know,
I agree.
easy enough to do, I think.
I agree. I I think exactly. Like I think when we sell the old players and bring on the new fresh players by either signing them or relying on our academy, I think our academy is very nice. Tanganga is very nice. We could play him as right back, center back. He's good. Harvey White is good. I've seen him, play. He's
Skip
very
is
good.
brilliant.
He has a great touch. Um, Dane Scarlett is an amazing striker. I've seen many games, of him in the youth team is amazing. Troy
Yeah.
Parrott is someone I'm not keen on, but I'm not gonna judge Troy Parrott at the age of 18. Kane didn't do
No.
anything at the
He
age of
used to look old clips of Troy Parrott from maybe a year ago or so used to look very impressive. He used to look like a very clinical striker.
Mhm.
It will depend how the rest of his time at Millwall goes, I suppose. I know he's had a couple of injuries, I think, here and there, like little ones. Um, but no, I think Dane Scarlett is probably the more promising looking out of the two. Um, and then obviously Oliver Skip as well looks
Skip,
incredible, and
Skip.
you
I'm a
know,
big fan of Skip. I'm a huge fan of
so
Skip. I
so am I.
think like I made one tweet, but they got a bit of hate for some weird reason. I said that Skip is more technical than Hoiberg. He'd be such a good addition, and they thought I was slandering Hoiberg. No, I'm just
Well,
saying like at this
it's just a
age,
compliment.
yeah, at this age he's very very good, and he is more technical than Hoiberg. Hoiberg is amazing. He has great passes. He's good defensively, but Skip is better with ball progression. You know, exactly like you said, it's a compliment. And we have
Skip is the more creative option. Hoiberg is the one that's sort of sturdy and positional and makes
basically.
the right decision. Yeah.
Yes, yes, I agree. And we have a left back. I really don't know how to pronounce his name. Sirkin?
Yes.
Sirkin.
Yeah, yeah, Sirkin. I think it's Sirkin. Because isn't
Yeah.
he English? I think he's English. But I'm
Um
not sure.
I don't know if he's English or not, but he's a good player. He's like what, 17 years old? Let me check
Yeah, he's
this.
very young. Yeah.
Yeah, and I've seen him play. He's actually Irish. He's actually Irish.
But he's Irish. There we go.
Yeah, he just hit 18, and I've seen the preseasons with him, and he's very, very promising. So, I mean, let them play more. The more they play, the more experience they have, and let us sign a batch of
They should be
young.
playing tonight, frankly.
To be honest, yeah, I think they should have been the ones playing. I mean, Skip is not going to play, and Harvey's not going to play. They're all loaned out. But the players that aren't loaned out should
Yeah.
have at least hit the bench. And if they're in the bench, it's pointless to bring them on the bench and not play them. It's Wolfsberger. But yeah, so that's how I see my rebuild. To be quite fair with you, it's very radical, I know, and not a lot of like mainstream Spurs fans would accept it, especially with the idea of selling Kane and Son and Lloris. It's very hard. Lloris like a World Cup champion. I don't think many people would swallow it, but it's a painful rebuild. It has to hurt. It has to sting. If it doesn't sting, it's not the rebuild we wanted. That's what I honestly believe in.
I agree with that. I think deep down, even though most fans will combat you on it and they'll argue with you on it, I think there's a subconscious part of their brain that knows you're correct about that. I think realistically, all Spurs, as much as they'll have a go at you for it and hit you with some reply that will try and get them some likes on Twitter, I
Hmm.
think I think most of them probably deep down know that basically all of that probably does need replacing. They might battle with you on the Kane point, and some of them will battle you on the Son point.
Hmm.
But I think realistically, not much of that can be disagreed with. It does need to be a big overhaul, and I mean, luckily it doesn't need to be as big of one now because we've got a couple of the pieces that we needed. But there's still a lot that needs to be done to the squad.
Okay, so the last question I'm gonna ask before I wrap things up. Nagelsmann. He's the one we're linked with. I mean, Rogers too, but mainly Nagelsmann. He's the main one we're linked with if
Yes,
Jose doesn't do his job. What do you think? With the whole thing, does it sit with you
huge
right?
fan of Nagelsmann.
Go
I'm
on.
a huge fan of Nagelsmann, and I think that he is as close a manager as we're realistically going to find to that old Pochettino style of football. Um, I think he likes to operate in a similar way. I think that the formation and the creation of the team would look very similar. Um, and I think most importantly, people are forgetting what Nagelsmann actually. If you could use the term generational for coaches rather than players, this 33-year-old definitely has that word applied to him. Because when you've only managed for 5 years and what you've achieved is taking a team from a deep relegation spot out of relegation to 15th place, and then the next season you take them to third place, a Champions League spot, then the next season you take them to another Champions League spot again, and then the next season you go to a club that's in the Champions League again, but even better than the previous club you were at, and you keep their Champions League spot and get them further the next time. And now you're only 2 points behind Bayern. I don't really see how anyone can argue with this manager being incredible.
You know what's the thing that made me laugh the most? When I said Nagelsmann should come and Nagelsmann's gonna do a good job, they're like, "What did he win? How many trophies does he have?" And it's the people that are way older than he is. A 35, 40-year-old is telling you, what did Nagelsmann win? Bro, what did you win? What did you win, bro?
Yeah.
Like, are they
Where's your
out of their
Champions
minds?
League?
Exactly. Where's your semifinals in the Champions League? Did you manage a team out of relegation? So like, bro, he's younger than you. You know, and those people that are like Jose fans, those young edgy kids that think bad football is a personality type. They want to be, those hipsters.
Yeah.
you know um you're not going to expect someone who just managed a relegation team to win a trophy, right? Like, do they think of that, or do they just like Google How many trophies did this manager win? And that's football for them. They don't watch matches. They don't understand the stories of the supporters. I actually feel the Jose fans, I mean, not all, I'm not going to generalize, but a lot of Jose fans, the new ones and the ones that are the most talkative on the internet, actually are very recent football fans. They don't know anything. They really don't. They just Google the most successful manager alive, and then there's Jose Mourinho with like a bunch of Premier League trophies and a bunch of Champions League trophies, and they're like, "This is the one. This is the one." If you tell them Guardiola, if you tell them Guardiola, they're like, "Ah, he's not Jose," and you're like, "What the hell is this guy talking about?" Right now, Guardiola is a bigger manager than Jose because he,
Oh,
Guardiola is more
10 times.
relevant right now.
Oh yeah, you'd have way more faith in Guardiola being your manager right now than Jose.
Basically.
Plus, I don't know why Jose is their model for like the ideal successful manager when Alex Ferguson is a far more successful manager than Jose is, and Alex Ferguson actually knows how to rotate players on and off of his team.
Exactly, and Alex Ferguson doesn't fall off.
No,
He's always been on an upward trajectory. Maybe not in Europe, but at least on a domestic level, he's never fallen off.
and he still won what, 2 Champions Leagues? Am I mistaken? Did he not win
Two,
2 Champions Leagues
two,
with Man
one
United?
in one in
And
'98, I think, and one in 2008, I think.
it was 1999 when they won the
Mm,
treble, and the final was against Bayern Munich, and then the other one was against Chelsea when they
Chelsea,
had Ronaldo at one point, I think.
Ronaldo, who missed.
Um,
Yeah,
but no, Alex Ferguson is so good that he won the season. He won the league and left. That's how good Alex Ferguson was. The season he quit Man United and quit managing, he won the league. He won the league with Man United and then dipped. He just left. That's how good Alex Ferguson was. But people use Jose as their inspiration for the successful manager that wins everything and you can't question any of his decisions.
and Alex Ferguson doesn't play bad football.
No,
Just
no,
the
not at all.
basics. I Here's the thing. I have no issue with Jose. I mean, I think personally he's a douchebag, but that aside, I have no issues with Jose. He has a style, he has methods, and he has his reasons to have a style like the style he has and the methods that he has. He wins trophies. He's successful. You could say he's a serial winner, although it's like a meme now to say that. It's honestly very shameful.
Yeah.
But he does have multiple trophies in many leagues. He does win the Champions League multiple times. He let Porto win the Champions League for God's sakes. So a lot of credit to Jose. His fans are the one that pisses me off the most. His fans are awful,
Yes.
relentless. My goodness, they you give them gold and they tell you this is crap. I'd rather Jose's shit instead. I don't know what, like, they would not, like, they don't like anything but Jose. Jose could
It's true.
murder someone and they'd be like, Jose is innocent. That's the winning style. No, it's not. He can make mistakes. He's human, and he's getting old, and it's obvious that he's making shit up as he goes right now. You know, but it's so ironic, don't you think? Like when Jose first came out, he was a translator who was much more tactically aware than his own manager. When he was Barcelona's uh,
Yeah.
translator, he was generational then. So how ironic is that today's generational manager replaces yesterday's generational manager at Spurs? And what's worse is that the rival fans don't want this to happen. They want Jose to succeed. They're like, keep him, have faith in him, because
Yep.
they know if Nagelsmann comes, it's
Because they know Nagelsmann would be an improvement, of course.
exactly. So I agree with what you say. He is generational. If generational could be used on a manager, I would use that on him. And I think he
Yeah.
is like Pochettino, the dynasty type long-term manager. He could be the Sir. I know I sound like I'm waffling right now, but like he could be like the Sir Alex Ferguson of our team if we manage
Yeah.
to keep him and we manage to actually back him. You know, I think yes, we should do it. We should do it. And the best part is that I'm glad, as much as I was suffering every single game and watching us made us feel like it's a chore, but I'm glad that Jose happened. I'm glad that Pochettino was sacked because it's like a slap in the face of the board. It's like a slap in their face and it's telling them this is what happens when you blame a dynasty manager for for a mistake that's not his fault. And it's your mistake for bringing someone who you think is a short-term fix. It's like painting on a wall, painting the cracks on the wall. It's not gonna happen like that, bro. Jose
Yep.
is not gonna cover up all these mistakes, and no Carabao Cup is gonna hide how terrible we are. We're ninth in the league. Aston Villa
Yep.
is gonna overcome us because they have one game in hand. So, like I was saying, it's like a slap in the face of the board. It's telling them that a quick fix is not gonna make it. Bring on a long-term manager. Bring on a long-term project, and bring on players that are gonna last us like at least a decade, or maybe like 8 7 8 years. Just like how
Yep.
Kane lasted us all those years, like Dele lasted us all those years. Son, bring the same concept, bring the same managerial concept, and we're going to see success again, and maybe we're going to win because we had the experience of almost winning. So maybe this time we'll win. What do you think? Do you have any closing
I
words?
I think that's a completely good point. Players that you can keep for 6, 7, 8 years, a long enough time for you to be able to realize when they're in the decline and cycle them out and start again. Um, any player that can last that long would be great. Don't bring in a 29-year-old, obviously, because if you bring one of those in, they stay at your club for 2 years, and then people go, "Oh, he's still as good as he was when we signed him," and then you get people disagreeing back and forth, and the player ends up getting sold 3 years too late, and you get nothing for him. Um, but I think it's completely right. We need a big overhaul, and I mean it's manager as well as players.
We need a big overhaul. That's a good way to end this episode. We do need a great overhaul, and the painful rebuild is way past its due, and hopefully we do get this. I mean, we'll see with the ongoing games. Maybe my next episode is going to be even more recent than this episode. Maybe like in 2 days I'm going to make another episode and talk about this, because we don't know what the future is. Everything's so cloudy right now, with Jose, with the players, with the team, with how we'll be in the end of the season. But this was actually very exciting. This was a very nice episode. I like the time passed so quickly just discussing with you, and I had such a good time. Guys, this is Josh Paulson. I'm gonna write down his Twitter link down in the description below. It's nice having you, man. See you. Take care.
You too. Enjoy yourself, mate.
Okay.